I'm Vanessa. I'm 43 years old, born and raised in New York City, and I've always had this restless kind of energy, the kind that refuses to settle for ordinary. I grew up watching my mother carefully care for her skin, spending hours experimenting with creams and oils, mixing natural ingredients she swore by and testing them on her friends. She believed beauty was more than just looks, it was confidence, it was self respect. That belief stuck with me in a way nothing else did. After college, I bounced between corporate jobs, trying to climb ladders that never felt built for me. I was good at what I did, don't get me wrong. I could sell ideas, manage teams, and deliver results, but there was this gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach that none of it was mine. I was building someone else's empire, and every day felt like I was leaving pieces of myself behind. That feeling grew until one day I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wanted to create something that was mine. Something that mattered, something real. It started small, like most good things do. I began experimenting in my tiny kitchen with natural oils, serums, and extracts. I was obsessed with understanding what actually worked, why some creams made your skin glow while others left it dull and lifeless. I researched endlessly, reading medical journals, consulting dermatologists, and even traveling to small laboratories to test formulations. I wasn't just looking to sell a product, I wanted to solve a problem. The market was flooded with overpriced, mediocre skincare products that promised miracles but delivered nothing. I wanted authenticity, transparency, and results. By the time I hit 42, I had a prototype that I knew could disrupt the industry. I'd blended rare botanicals, optimized concentrations, and created a formula that wasn't just about looking good, it was about feeling confident in your own skin. I had bottles filled, labels designed, and a vision that stretched far beyond what any corporate strategy manual could teach me. I even gave it a name that felt personal yet aspirational. It was more than a brand, it was a mission. Then came the tricky part, sharing it with the one person I trusted the most, my boyfriend at the time. We had been together for 3 years, and I thought we were a team in every sense of the word. I told him about the idea, showing him the formulas, the designs, the marketing strategy I had painstakingly crafted over months. I wanted his honest feedback. I thought he'd be my cheerleader, my sounding board, maybe even a partner in this journey. I remember sitting at our small apartment kitchen table, explaining every detail with the kind of passion that made me forget the world outside. This could be huge, I said. I've never seen anything like it. It's not just skincare, it's confidence in a bottle. People will feel the difference. He smiled, nodded, and for a moment I felt this surge of hope. Maybe I wasn't alone in this. That was the moment the spark turned into a fire, but little did I know it wasn't going to burn alongside me. In those early days, everything felt raw, exciting, and terrifying. I was pouring every ounce of myself into this project. I spent late nights testing blends under tiny kitchen lamps, making notes, adjusting measurements with surgical precision. I learned how to source sustainable ingredients, negotiated with suppliers, and even taught myself the basics of branding and packaging design. Each step felt like a small victory, a personal proof that I could finally build something that was entirely mine. What kept me going wasn't just ambition, it was the realization that I was finally honoring myself. Every entrepreneur talks about passion, but passion alone isn't enough. It's discipline, relentless experimentation, and the courage to put yourself out there when failure is the most likely outcome. I knew there would be setbacks. I knew there would be people who doubted me. But I also knew that for the first time in my life, I was doing something for myself, and that alone made every risk worth it. By the time I had a working formula and a mock up packaging ready, I could feel the excitement buzzing in the air around me. I knew that if I launched this, it would change everything, not just for me, but for the people who would use it. This wasn't about vanity, it was about empowerment. I envisioned women, men, people from every walk of life opening my product and feeling like someone finally understood what their skin, and by extension, their confidence needed. And then I made the mistake of trusting the wrong person. I shared my prototype, my business plan, and my vision with him completely, without hesitation. In my mind, he was my partner, not just romantically, but emotionally and intellectually. I believed he would protect my idea as fiercely as I did. I believed that he would be proud, excited, and supportive. At the time, the thought of him betraying me never even crossed my mind, not for a second. I didn't see it coming because I had never imagined that someone could want to steal not just your idea, but your future without a second thought. Looking back now, I can see how every late night, every brainstorming session, every casual conversation about what if we tried this gave him the blueprint he would later use to try to beat me at my own game. But in that moment, I was too immersed in the thrill of creation to notice the seeds of betrayal being planted. Every successful entrepreneur I know talks about passion, focus, and grit, but no one warns you about the heartbreak that comes when the person you trust the most becomes the first obstacle in your path. That realization didn't come gently, it hit like a punch in the gut. But the truth is, even before the betrayal, something inside me had already started to evolve. That fire I mentioned, it was bigger than any relationship, bigger than any setback. I was building something that was mine, and no one, not even someone I loved, could take that away from me. The spark of creation had ignited, and it wasn't going to burn out because of someone else's greed or cowardice. I never saw it coming, not in a million years. I trusted him completely, the man I had shared my life with for 3 years, the person I believed was my partner in every sense. I had given him every detail of my skincare line: formulas, packaging concepts, marketing plans, even the suppliers I was planning to work with. I believed we were building dreams together, and in my head, that meant loyalty. The betrayal hit me on a Monday morning. I was scrolling through Instagram while sipping my coffee when I saw it. His face, smiling in a perfectly staged launch post, the exact name of my brand, the exact concept I had spent months refining. But he wasn't launching it with me. He had teamed up with someone else, a stranger, someone I had never met. At first, I couldn't process it. My brain kept trying to rationalize. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe he was joking. Maybe I had misread something. But the moment I clicked the link, reality slammed into me like a freight train. Every detail, every nuance, every element of my concept had been stolen. It was my idea, my work, my future, and he had taken it behind my back. I sat there in stunned silence for what felt like hours. I could feel my chest tightening, my hands trembling. Betrayal isn't just an emotional punch, it's a sense of being stripped of your identity. This wasn't a minor setback. This wasn't a competitor copying a product. This was someone I loved, someone I had trusted, using my vision to try to beat me at my own game. Anger and disbelief consumed me. I wanted to call him, scream, demand an explanation. I wanted to cry. I wanted to give up entirely, but underneath all that raw emotion, something else was stirring, a quiet, dangerous resolve. I realized that I had two choices. I could let this break me, or I could let it fuel me. I chose the latter. I spent that day and many nights after going through every detail of my work, analyzing where he had copied me and identifying ways I could make my vision even stronger. I refused to act rashly. Instead, I channeled every ounce of betrayal into strategy. I would not let him get away with this, and I would not let him define the future of my brand. If he wanted to steal my idea, I would take it back, not by confrontation, but by creating something so powerful that he could never compete. I started by examining the formula itself. I had been proud of my original blend, but now I had a chance to elevate it. I consulted with a top chemist I had met during my early research. We improved the serum's absorption rate, increased the potency of active ingredients, and added unique botanicals that were scientifically proven to enhance skin health. What I already thought was good became exceptional. Next, I turned to branding. My original labels were simple and elegant, but now I realized that presentation mattered more than ever. I redesigned everything: logo, packaging, website layout, and even social media strategy. I wanted my brand to feel modern, aspirational, and unmistakably authentic. I refused to compete on his terms. I would compete on excellence. The emotional part of this process was brutal. Every night I replayed the image of his launch, the smug smile, the audacity it took to think he could beat me. There were moments when I questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Was this worth all the energy I was pouring in? But every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself why I started this in the first place. This was my life's work, my integrity, my future, and no one, not even someone I loved, was going to take it from me. I also realized that my anger had to be managed carefully. It was a powerful tool if channeled correctly, but destructive if I let it take over. I created strict work schedules, deadlines, and milestones to ensure that my focus remained on building something better, not just on being angry. The betrayal became my fuel, but the fuel had direction. During this time, I didn't reach out to him. I didn't accuse him. I didn't beg. I simply watched from a distance, quietly preparing to show the world that authenticity, hard work, and innovation always win over shortcuts and deceit. I started reaching out to influencers who aligned with my brand's mission, people I genuinely respected and who had credibility in the skincare world. I sent them samples with personal notes explaining the care and thought behind every ingredient. Slowly but surely, momentum began to build. My vision, my authentic, superior vision, was taking life independent of the betrayal I had endured. By the time his launch had started to fizzle, mine was gathering steam. The irony wasn't lost on me. He had tried to shortcut the process, thinking he could ride my hard work to success. Meanwhile, I had transformed disappointment into opportunity. I was creating not just a product, but a statement that real creators, real innovators cannot be stolen. The betrayal taught me more than just heartbreak. It taught me resilience, strategy, and the unshakable power of focus. I learned that someone else's greed does not define your limits, it exposes them, giving you the chance to rise above. Every moment I had spent doubting myself, every sleepless night in my kitchen perfecting formulas, Every ounce of trust I had placed in the wrong person became part of a story that was stronger than any setback. And so, the spark I had ignited in my kitchen months earlier burned brighter than ever. Betrayal could not snuff it out, it only forced me to refine, strengthen, and accelerate. In that moment of deepest hurt, I discovered a truth every entrepreneur eventually learns. Your greatest power comes not from luck, timing, or even talent, but from your ability to transform betrayal into triumph. The morning after I fully realized what he had done, I sat at my kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, staring at my notes, formulas, and sketches. At that moment, the world felt like it had collapsed, but only briefly. Because very quickly, a fire ignited inside me, one I hadn't felt even in the early days of creation. This wasn't just anger anymore, it was clarity. Betrayal had shown me something crucial. My idea, my vision, and my brand were bigger than any one person, even someone I loved. And if I wanted to succeed, I had to rise above, not react. The first step was to reinvent every part of my brand. I couldn't just tweak the formula, I had to make it untouchable. I called my chemist first thing that morning and laid out everything we could improve. Together, we redesigned the serum to enhance absorption, stability, and results. We added unique, rare botanicals that were difficult to source, ensuring that no copycat, even someone with insider knowledge, could replicate it easily. Every ingredient had a story and a purpose, something that resonated with the people who would eventually trust my brand. Next came the packaging. I poured hours into every detail: the font, the texture of the labels, the shape of the bottle, the subtle shimmer that caught light in a particular way. I didn't just want a skincare product, I wanted an experience, one that communicated quality, authenticity, and confidence. It was sleek, modern, and unapologetically bold. The goal wasn't just to look different, it was to feel different, to scream innovation without saying a word. Redesigning the brand's identity meant reevaluating everything. I wrote a new mission statement, one that reflected resilience, empowerment, and integrity. I developed social media content that wasn't just promotional but educational, sharing knowledge about skincare science and self-care practices. I wanted the brand to become a trusted voice, a beacon for people who were tired of empty promises. Every post, every caption, every image was intentional. But reinvention wasn't just external, it was personal. I had to shed the fear, doubt, and heartbreak that came with betrayal. I refused to let it define me. Instead, I used it as fuel. I created a strict work schedule. Mornings were for testing and formulations, afternoons for branding and strategy, evenings for networking and connecting with influencers. Every hour was focused, precise, and purposeful. I was no longer just creating a product, I was building an empire. Marketing became a battlefield strategy. I reached out to influencers I genuinely admired, sending them personalized packages with handwritten notes explaining the thought, care, and science behind every ingredient. I didn't just want them to try the product, I wanted them to believe in it. I targeted communities online that were tired of generic, mediocre skincare. Every review, every post, every mention had to feel authentic. I didn't want hype, I wanted trust. Meanwhile, I monitored his launch quietly. I didn't respond, didn't confront, didn't acknowledge it publicly. I learned that the best revenge wasn't drama, it was excellence. Watching him struggle with a product that was inferior, rushed, and poorly thought out only strengthened my resolve. He had taken the shortcut, I had taken the high road, but with precision, creativity, and hard work that no shortcut could ever replicate. There were moments when exhaustion set in, when I questioned whether I could sustain this pace, whether the market would notice, whether people would care. But I reminded myself of every late night, every trial and error, every moment I had spent perfecting the product. I remembered why I started this journey, not for money, not for recognition, but for the power of creating something authentic and meaningful. By the time the relaunch date came around, the product wasn't just better, it was revolutionary. It represented months of work, refinement, and resilience. And the moment we went live, the response was immediate. Messages poured in, pre-orders skyrocketed, and social media buzz started building organically. Influencers posted unboxing videos, dermatologists shared reviews, and everyday users began sharing their results. The brand wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. I realized something powerful during this reinvention process. Betrayal had been a gift in disguise. It forced me to rethink, rebuild, and raise the bar beyond what I could have imagined. I wasn't just recovering from a setback, I was creating a product, a brand, and a story that no one could touch. And in that process, I found an unexpected freedom. I didn't need anyone else's approval, guidance, or partnership to succeed. I had everything I needed within myself. Every small victory felt monumental. Every positive review, every glowing comment, every share on social media reinforced that my hard work, integrity, and vision were resonating. The fire that had sparked in my kitchen months earlier had transformed into a blaze, and I was finally in full control. No one could take that from me, not even someone who had once tried. The day we launched the redesigned product felt surreal. I remember hitting publish on the website and thinking, this is it. Everything we've worked for, everything we've sacrificed, it all comes down to this moment. There was no fanfare, no announcement to the world beyond a carefully planned social media rollout. I wanted authenticity, not hype. I wanted people to discover it naturally and feel the difference for themselves. Almost immediately, the reaction was overwhelming. Pre-orders exceeded my wildest expectations. Influencers I had reached out to posted unboxing videos and reviews that weren't just positive, they were glowing. But what struck me most was the organic response from everyday users. Messages flooded in, my skin has never felt like this before. Finally, a product that actually works. I feel confident again. Every single message reminded me why I started this journey in the first place. Watching the brand gain traction was intoxicating in a way I hadn't anticipated. Each day brought new milestones, features in lifestyle blogs, shout-outs from skincare experts, viral posts across Instagram and TikTok. But I never let myself get distracted by the attention. The focus remained on improving, on listening to my customers, on innovating further. Success wasn't just about numbers, it was about impact. And then there was him. I followed his launch quietly, just enough to see how his version of my idea fared. Initially, there was excitement on his end, some small buzz, but it didn't last. The formula he had copied was inferior. Reviews began trickling in, highlighting flaws, poor results, and questionable quality. His branding felt rushed, impersonal, and shallow. People noticed. His launch started losing momentum almost as quickly as it began. I won't lie, the satisfaction was undeniable, not because I wanted to see him fail, but because it validated everything I had done. The months of late nights, the heartbreak, the reinvention, they had all paid off. The difference wasn't luck, it wasn't timing. It was integrity, vision, and relentless effort. My product wasn't just better, it was unmatched. The momentum kept building. Social media mentions grew exponentially. I started receiving invitations to podcasts, interviews, and features in major lifestyle magazines. People weren't just buying a product, they were buying into a story of resilience, creativity, and refusing to be defined by someone else's betrayal. Every time I spoke about the journey, I emphasized that real success comes from commitment to your vision, not shortcuts or stealing ideas. By the end of the first month, sales had already surpassed my initial projections. I had investors reaching out, influencers asking to collaborate, and a community of loyal users who were eager to share their results. It was everything I had dreamed of, but even better, it was authentic. I hadn't compromised my values, my brand, or my vision. And while I celebrated these victories, I also reflected on the contrast with him. He had thought he could outsmart me, but the reality was stark. Where he had rushed, I had perfected. Where he had taken a shortcut, I had built a foundation. His version of the brand was failing because it lacked authenticity, care, and a connection with the audience. My success wasn't just about the product, it was about everything else he had overlooked: trust, integrity, and vision. Through this process, I discovered something crucial about business and about life. People may try to betray you, to steal your ideas, to undermine your efforts, but your response defines the outcome. You can react in anger and lose yourself, or you can channel that energy into creation and build something that no one can touch. I chose the latter, and every milestone reminded me that I had made the right choice. The rise to success wasn't overnight, it was the result of months of relentless focus, refinement, and resilience. Every small decision mattered: selecting the right ingredients, designing packaging that felt personal yet aspirational, building a social media strategy that spoke to real people. And the results spoke for themselves. By the time 3 months had passed since the relaunch, my brand had become a recognized name in the skincare world. Users raved about the products, the story went viral on multiple platforms, and every milestone reminded me that Betrayal had been nothing more than a catalyst. It had forced me to elevate, innovate, and prove to myself and the world that I was unstoppable. I had reached a place I never thought possible, and the irony wasn't lost on me. The person who had tried to steal my idea was now irrelevant. My vision, my integrity, and my hard work had created a reality he could never replicate. The brand wasn't just a product, it was proof that resilience, focus, and authenticity always win. A few months after my relaunch, I received a message that made my stomach tighten for a completely different reason than before. It was him. My ex, the man who had tried to steal my vision, the person whose betrayal had almost shattered me, he wanted to meet. He wanted a partnership. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel some kind of satisfaction in knowing he was coming to me, asking for what I had already built. Part of me felt the old sting of betrayal and wondered if he was trying to manipulate my compassion. But most of all, I felt clarity. I had worked too hard, come too far, and transformed my vision into a reality that no one could touch. I didn't need him, and I certainly didn't owe him a second chance. I thought about how far I had come. The nights spent perfecting formulas, the painstaking branding work, the relentless focus, and the countless moments when I almost gave up but didn't. Every review, every viral post, every customer testimonial reminded me of the distance I had traveled from that vulnerable, betrayed version of myself. I had grown stronger, sharper, and more confident than I had ever been. So I typed a simple reply: no meeting necessary. I'm already exactly where I need to be. This is what success looks like without betrayal. It wasn't mean, it wasn't arrogant, it was truth, and it felt liberating. He never replied, and I didn't need him to. Because at that moment, I realized something fundamental. Real power doesn't come from revenge or proving someone wrong. It comes from creating a life, a brand, and a reality that no one can take from you. I didn't need his validation. I didn't need his partnership. My success was mine, earned with every ounce of effort, vision, and integrity I had poured into it. The response was more than closure, it was a declaration. I had transformed betrayal into triumph, heartbreak into strategy, and doubt into empowerment. And in doing so, I had shown myself and the world that success isn't just about what you create, it's about who you become in the process. Today, my skincare brand is thriving, growing, and continuing to impact lives. I receive messages from people who feel empowered by the story behind it, inspired by the fact that someone refused to let betrayal define her. I share my journey openly because if my experience teaches one person to channel their pain into purpose, it's worth every sleepless night and every tear shed in the early days. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing, not even the betrayal. It was a turning point, a catalyst that forced me to rise higher than I could have imagined. And as for him, he's just a chapter in the story of a woman who decided to build her empire without compromise. I didn't just survive betrayal, I thrived because of it. And that, more than anything, is what real success looks like.